pretty straightforward routine, just schedule-wise. Sunday game. I think 2:25 our time, 1:25 their time. Any questions relative to this week?
You made it pretty clear that, guys that are healthy are going to play and all that. Do you use it at all as an opportunity with maybe a younger player to see him in a slightly different role in real action? You plan it just like you would any other game?
I'm playing it just like I would, if we had to win to get it, playing it just like I would a regular game.
Do you have an update on McGlinchey's status?
No update with him. I mentioned Turner Yell. Tomorrow he'll go on reserve injured. The rest of these guys, nothing new.
With Jarrett, you talked about he didn't necessarily look like a young player or a guy to have 3 starts on the road. How helpful do you think that'll be that for?
Look, I think it'll be important. I mean, obviously he's familiar with this stadium we're going to. You go through the crowd noise. I would say today's the first day where we're in shotgun with him on a silent snap count. I mean, there are little nuances that obviously maybe are more cadence driven. We'll work through that.
Were Barron and Portland in non-contact jerseys?
Yeah, look, it's pretty normal. Anytime a player's in the protocol, we'll put them in a navy or a color different than we're going to be wearing, just as a heads up. Both of them were limited.
Sean, you had mentioned after the game the block Michael Burton threw in the pocket, but had you been aware until you watched the film?
I hadn't seen it, and I just showed it to our team this morning. Every once in a while you see – I'd never seen that, and I brought up – there was a play, and you guys might remember it. I believe Champ was here with Denver, and they were playing the Patriots, and there was an interception – New England's going in 2-yard line. Champ picks it off, and he's going 98 the other way. And Ben Watson was on the other end of the field and took this unbelievable angle and prevented a score. This play kind of goes in that little category for me that is, pretty special relative to – and you just say, when you think you're playing hard, take a peek at this, and it was, but I was not aware of it. I was only aware of the pickup. And then, now LJ's got to bounce off about 5 people for the fullback to get ahead of him. But I'd never seen something like that. It was a special play.
With Jarrett, after getting a full set of game reps, I mean, where does that? I know he's played before, but just with your offense, how does that help him then?
I think. Look, there's so many things you try to do. You hear us talk about preseason with young quarterbacks and getting actual flight miles. There's so much you can do to simulate it and practice, and so getting into a game, is invaluable.
What do you remember about just last year? Obviously, you had no idea he'd become the Broncos coach and signed Stidham, but just seeing those games he had last year for the Raiders, especially against the 49ers. What do you remember about that?
So I don't recall a lot relative to at that time. I knew he played those last 2 games, and it wasn't until I began to look at the all-22, here as we were looking at free agents. So in that analyst position, you're seeing more of the TV copies and, the highlights, and you're trying to stay in touch with it. Occasionally I had access to the all-22, and I was looking at that more for trends, just with what was going on in the league. But I think for him, I think that first start against a real good defense, it opened a lot of people's eyes that I don't know that anyone saw that coming.
The Pro Bowl rosters are announced later today. On this team, who do you think deserves that nod?
Oh, that's a tough question. I always think as a coach, it's exciting, but it's also every year, I like to get out ahead of it, and usually I'll reach out to those players to congratulate them, and then reach out to those players maybe that didn't get in. And yeah, that's kind of been what I'm used to doing. So we'll see. I mean, it's just one of those things that, we had a ballot a week ago that we looked at as a coach's ballot, and but there's not a whole lot of that, anything you can control, but just letting the players know ahead of time, those that got in, maybe those that didn't.
Any staples you see from the Raiders since Antonio Pierce took over there?
Yeah, look, I would say this to his credit, man, he was a tough player. I remember him well. We had some good battles with the Giants teams. There's a grit and toughness you see with how they're playing, both on defense and certainly on offense, their running game. He obviously has a good, rich history with that tradition, and I think he's done a really good job. And that's a credit not only to him but his staff and his team. But you see it on film, you feel it. When we profiled this team, we profiled the entire season, but then more importantly, we profiled since he took over. The one thing that jumped out is you look at their takeaway and giveaway numbers. Since he took over, they're fifth in the NFL with that turnover ratio, both offensively and combined. But he's done a really good job.
Sean, you guys put together a pretty good plan for Maxx the first game. I think he had one sack, but by and large, when you go to put together the second plan, how much do you use the first meeting, or is it more about
some of it you do, some of it it's a great question. The Charger game, it felt like it was just 2 weeks back. This one feels like it was last season. But when you put the tape on and you see that defensively, I don't know that there's different players playing at some positions, but you're still seeing a very similar scheme. Maybe there's been a little bit more of a transition offensively. It's hard for me to say that, but Maxx, I mean, the challenge with him is, I said this the other day, these traits where he's an exceptional athlete. He bends really well. So it's hard to stay on him. He can get off a block very quickly. He's highly intelligent. So you see him in a stance, waiting. He obviously understands where the backs are. So he's highly intelligent. And then the other thing is his stamina is unique. I mean, I don't have the exacts, but he's playing close to 98, 99%. And when you look at play 67, it's the same as play 8. That's rare. And then you have kind of one of these elite players. And you see it in every game. Run and pass. You see it in every game. So that creates, time relative to tonight will be third down. Obviously, that's a whole different, ball of wax in regards to protections, and then, what you want to do. He plays over on the right, but he plays on the left. They move him around too. But he's something.
Maybe a related question, but when you go from week 1 to week 18, there's a coaching change. I mean, how much use do you get out of?
Well, it all factors in. The cut up I'm looking at right now is all of last season, all of this season, and we'll even go back. If there's dramatic change, then we'll begin to move away from that information. It just all you're looking for is consistency with certain schemes and defenses. So, goal line, you may not have as many snaps in one given year. You go back another year, you confirm they're playing a certain goal line front, that kind of thing. But all of it goes in, and then you kind of weigh what you see that's different.
Coach, with how the season started, how does it feel now that you can finish the season above 500?
Yeah, I mean, I think getting to 9 wins is important, and I think it's important for our players to understand that, and I think they do as well. Heading into next season, there's a ton of these peaks and valleys during any NFL season. I mean, when you look at a team like Philadelphia, it just comes with everyone. And certainly we had our fair share, but I think finishing strong is important.
Is Jarrett sort of a new role for him, but is he pretty good about telling you what he likes, or do you have to kind of coax him?
Yeah, no, I mean, similar to Russ, when the week's over with and here's the game plan call sheet, those guys will dot or number their top in each section, play action. They might put their top 4 screens, third down, drop back, flip the card, red zone. And so then, I'll make those notes on mine. That's important. And then equally important is, hey, if something you don't like. So if there's 11 plays and somehow those guys put number 11 down, I'm probably not calling 11. If there's 11 play actions, I'm probably staying away from 11.
But he's pretty good about that?
Yeah, I think so. And look, I think this is the time where, let's say I like something. Well, it doesn't mean he's going to like it. And so we hope to get the right look where he then or let's say it's Johnny Morton or Joe or whoever. You're trying to get the right look. And then it's kind of the sum total of how the week looked, who's doing it. And so, some plays will scratch at the end of the week, and then we might have an ad Saturday. We see something that we feel like fits. But yeah, he's good with that. All right, thank you guys.
Thanks.